Hi there, it's Jim, working without a nib, working without a script, just like always. I want to talk about nib grinds again, specifically 2 and 3 layer stacked nibs. First thing you're going to notice is the angle of the grind here is different. What's also different is the triangle, basically, at the tip. This is why in the first video about stacked nibs, I talked about doing architect nibs as really the first starting place. The second thing you're going to end up doing is, instead of an architect, you'll end up doing something a little more curved, which in the front of the nib, this is your next assignment. Since we're dealing with single nibs here, your architect grind needs to do this instead. So from the side, what it looks like is you're taking off this, but leaving that alone. Okay? There's a reason for this. Doing that is going to alter your ability to write from something more fine to something broader. For stack nibs, that's very important, and for things like your single nib togies and zoom nibs and what have you. So, I mentioned that the triangle here is different on these pens. Let's show you how they write, in actual use. So let's call this Kissaki 2A. Nice high angle. Let's call that 75 degrees, plus or minus. Because I primed this nib before I started, this is a lot broader and wetter than it usually is. So bear with me. Right now, that's probably Euro medium, if not more. Notice how that changed? That's because I changed the angle versus the paper. We'll get to that in a second. So let's go with, that's a 60 degree, plus or minus. That's definitely a Euro broad, if not broader. So when you lay it really far down on the paper, it's going to broaden up quite a lot. So let's do that. Here we've got 45 degrees, plus or minus. It's pretty impressive. Sometimes, depending on how you grind them, you can also do upside down. And this one's a fairly dry upside down, but you're looking at an extra fine. That's that part of the nib. So put this one away. By the way, this is a Chet Herbert pen, Herbert Pen Company. Great guy if you haven't met him. Okay, so here's another one. Angle's different, face is different. So we'll call this... Oh, there we go. High angle, plus minus. I didn't prime this one. So right now, that's probably a Euro fine. Let's change the angle again. Get closer to that 60 degree like we did the last time. or broader. Get down to the 45. This one simply isn't going to get to double broad. That's partially due to the angle and the grind of the face. It just won't do it. That's a choice. Now, one thing I do periodically is retip. Mostly as an experiment because I want to learn how to do that. That's the ultimate goal, really. I just happen to get into welding stacked nibs because it's good welding practice. This is an undermounted Kissaki 2. I call it a Kissaki because it's like the sword point of a samurai sword, which is called a Kissaki. The bottom nib has been retipped with material that is essentially double broad. It's German material, same stuff that goes on a lot of familiar pens. They won't tell you which ones. It's hard to get, the balls are expensive, and I'm running out, which makes life even more fun. So I don't sell the undermounted ones. Undermounted. So high angle again. That's in the Euro mediums. Lower angle. Get right down there. Why is this actually slightly less than this? Grind on the face. Notice that there's a little more curve on this one than the other ones. That grind actually rolls over at the bottom of the retip. So let's call that a broad. You can get really high. That's a Euro. Fine. Let's make that look like an F. You can also roll these to the sides. That's a neat thing about the 2 layers, 3 layers, and above. And make them as many as 5 layers. Beyond that, you get a little collapse on the nibs because there's a lot of pressure in there. And it's also a case of what the hell are you going to do with it? Because it's so long. It'll be the super architect of the gods if you want it to be. Okay, again, another retip on the bottom, undermounted, slightly different face grind. So this one's A. Slightly different, also slightly wetter. It's a weird Eurofine medium. Nothing wrong with that. This was, again, an intentional thing. I wanted to see what it would do. Let's get around that 60 degree from before. That's definitely a broad. Let's really lay it down here, closer to a 45, which is usually what the angle I write with. Yeah, that's double broad for absolute sure. Can I get it lower? I wonder. I haven't actually done that, so. Okay. Again, curves under a little bit. It sort of fits in between there, which is neat. And you get your sides like the other ones. Yep. So those are the K2s, a couple of variations. I've also got a couple of Kissaki 3s that are ground a little differently, not as extremely different as the 2s are, but okay. It's one angle slightly curved. Franklin Christoph's. And a shorter angle on this one. So let's start with this pen. The face doesn't have an extreme triangle. So what that means is it's not going to give you as much line variation. Again, intentional on my part. But let's get high up. Slightly stubby medium for a little SM on your Saturday. Let's move it down a little further. I don't know, you call that broad or double broad? Call it B+. Lay it down further, closer to 45. See? Again. This is why. If you're looking at the, well, let's straighten out that slit there. This curve down here at the base is what's controlling that line width. Like I said, this particular one doesn't have a lot of line variation. It's basically medium to broad or double broad. Nothing wrong with that. Let's see if this one's going to make a fool out of me. No? Okay. See? Euro fine. Change the angle again. Drop it down further. Let's drop it down really far. It's probably a little clogged because I repolished it. At any rate, what about upside down? Extra fine like the rest of them. Sideways, a little dry this morning, but that's okay. I asked a lot of it earlier when I repolished it, so there's probably still goo in there. So, again, angle means a lot. And you can do a lot with it. See what I mean? Okay, so I'm going to give everybody a little assignment for grinding. What I want you to do is go from typical grind, as a nib would be when you get it out of the plastic bag or what have you. And I want you to do this. Flatten it on the top, flatten it on the bottom, so you've basically got a cursive stub or stub nib. This is important for later. So what you want to do, they're also italic grinds, aren't they? Italic or stub, flatten it. That'll come in handy probably the next technical video about making stacked nibs. Just for giggles, I want to point out, besides the stickers, this is a Quattro 8x8 grid notebook. It's fountain pen friendly, plus it's got the really neat grid on it, which if you doodle compulsively like I do, is a lot of fun. So, at any rate, that's the Kissaki 2 and 3. Have a great day. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, email me, hit me up on Instagram, what have you. Subscribe, like it. Good.